Hello and welcome. Today is day 15 of my 30-day cyber challenge. And we are back on the TryHackMe platform. We are still currently working through the Introduction to Cybersecurity learning path. And we are currently in the Operating Systems Security module. And there are 3 tasks inside this module. So we have task 1, Introduction to Operating System Security. Task 2, common examples of OS security, and task 3, which looks like we have an interactive example or a practical example of OS security, and we can see that we're going to have to interact with a site or possibly a machine by opening something up here. So before I begin, I just want to go ahead and notate, I am no longer going to be using the physical or visual recordings of myself going through these scenarios or tasks. I did get some feedback, and the feedback that I received is that I should focus primarily on the content and the scenarios that we're working through, as opposed to carving out space to put in a recording of myself actively working through this. I don't think that it really offers much assistance having my face recorded in a corner. As you can hear my voice and you can see my screen of what we're doing, and I'm just going to walk you through these scenarios and show you what things I do and how I work through the hurdles if I get stuck on something. So I would rather focus on working through the resource and working through the scenario as opposed to worried about setting up an environment for lighting and recording myself. So we're going to go ahead and just dive right in. Task 1, Introduction to Operating System Security. And we're going to kick off with the content. Let me go ahead and enlarge my screen just a bit here. Perfect. All right. Every day you use a smartphone or laptop or almost any type of computer you interact with directly or indirectly with an operating system. Operating systems include MS Windows, Mac OS, iOS, Android, Chrome OS, and Linux. That's just to name a few. But what is an operating system? To define an operating system, we need to visit one computer term, which is hardware. So pretty much everything we see on this desk here, most importantly our coffee. Computer hardware refers to all the computer parts and peripherals, so the items or devices that connect to the computer or hardware that you're using, that you can touch with your hand. Hardware includes the screen, the keyboard, the printer, the USB flash memory, and the desktop board, or aka the motherboard. As shown in the figure below, the desktop board contains many components, in particular the central processing unit, aka the CPU, and memory chips, which is also known as RAM or random access memory. Although not shown in the image below, the desktop board is usually connected to a storage device such as HDD or SSD, sorry about that. It's going to be a hard disk drive or a solid state drive. And the desktop board is the main part of a computer, and all the other pieces of the hardware from keyboard, mouse to screen to printer and everything in between connect to it. However, hardware components by themselves are useless. If you want to run your favorite programs and applications, we need an operating system to control and drive them. So we're going to just take a look at this little representation here. We see software, and it looks like a little triad, kind of stems off. And we have programs such as Firefox, Chrome, Microsoft Office, WhatsApp, Telegram. In the center here, we have the operating system, and then the bottom we have the hardware. So we can see that the programs kind of live on top. The operating system lives in between, and the hardware lies on the bottom. So for the software to communicate with the hardware, it actually communicates through the operating system, and of course, vice versa back up. The operating system is the layer sitting between the hardware and the applications and programs you are running. Example programs you would use daily might include a web browser such as Firefox, Safari, and Chrome, and other messaging apps such as Signal, WhatsApp, and Telegram. All the applications and programs cannot run directly on the computer hardware. However, they run on top of the operating system, just as we saw in this representation here, on top of the operating system. And the operating system lives between the hardware and the software, basically. All right, the operating system allows these programs to access hardware according to specific rules. Some operating systems are designed to run on laptops and personal desktops, such as MS Windows 11 or Windows 10, and as well Mac OS, or what used to be the Macintosh, I do believe. Other operating systems are designed specifically for smartphones, such as Android and iOS. And I believe even iPad has its own, which is iPad OS. And I believe the watch has its own, which is watch OS for Apple. There are also operating systems intended for servers. Examples include MS Windows Server 2022, IBM AIX, and the Oracle Solaris. Finally, there are operating systems that you can use on a personal computer and server. One example is Linux, which is very widely renowned for the server world and, of course, utilized in personal computing. The image below shows the popularity of the different operating systems used to browse the internet according to StatCounter, based on the data collected during 2022 of January. So we can see here we have an unknown, which that's kind of funny. OS X, we have about a 7% market share. iOS is about 18%, Windows is about 32%, and Android, surprisingly, about 40%. That's okay. But I can see that because they got a lot of different phones, a lot of different flavors. Your smartphone might be running Android or iOS, and you might have plenty of private data on it. Examples include private conversations with your family and friends, photos, email, passwords, e-banking apps. The list of confidential and private data goes on and on. You don't want someone you don't trust to open your phone and go through your photos, conversations, and apps. Hence, you need to secure your phone and its operating system. The same goes for your laptop and or computer running MS Windows, Mac OS, and or Linux. Your computer will most likely contain plenty of information such as confidential files related to your work or university, private personal files such as copies of ID and passport, email programs such as MS Outlook, Mozilla Thunderbird, passwords saved in web browsers and other applications, and copy of digital camera and or smartphone photos. The list can get very long depending on the type of user and considering the nature of the saved data. You want to ensure that your data is secure. When we talk about the security, we should think of protecting three things. So those three things are what is known as the CIA triad, and no, not the Central Intelligence Agency triad. This is the confidentiality, integrity, availability triad. So confidentiality represents you want to ensure that secret and private files and information are only available to those intended. Integrity, it is crucial that no one can tamper with the files stored on your system or while being transferred on the network. So whether that's at rest or in transfer. And availability, you want your laptop or smartphone to be available to use anytime you decide to use it. So if it's available to you, it should always be available to you. In the next task, we will discuss common attacks against the three security pillars. So answer the questions below. Which of the following is not an operating system? AIX, Android, Chrome OS, Solaris, and Thunderbird. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say Thunderbird, but that's just because I remember up there it talked about a mail server and it said Mozilla Thunderbird. So right here, MS Outlook and Mozilla Thunderbird is email programs. Oh, well, it would help too if I spelled it correctly. Not Thunderbird, Thunderbird, and not Thunderbird. Oh my gosh, I love this in real time. Awesome. All right, perfect. So we've got that one complete, and it looks like we're going to kick off with task 2 tomorrow, day 16 of common examples of OS security. And that's it for today.